farmers are always depicted as poor and uneducated in TV or in any media. And you kind of take it for granted, yeah, poor farmer. And there's a association there and a perception that you just kind of take as default. And even I, who grew up on a farm and grew up in a farm community surrounded by farmers in real life, I would take this depiction, this stereotype, this caricature as truth, as representative of how most farmers are, even though I had lived experience, I was in the reality. And that to me is so indicative of how we really give the TV depictions of reality, we really give them a lot of authority and credibility that is not earned. To be honest, it's depicting farmers as poor is a way, and as dumb, is a way of detracting you from wanting to ever be that as a career. And so it actually makes you think, well, there's an emphasis on don't be in this boring, dumb world. Be in the city. The city is a glamorized, sparkling, and there's an idea that you'll make money there. That's what we're fed over and over, is go to the city to have the ideal life, right? And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. I just think it's very strange when farmers are not poor, for one. In my experience, all the farmers I knew in my reality were upper middle class. They were, in fact, a lot of them I associated with wealth. They had tons of vehicles. They were just very, they're not who you'd associate as poor at all by what the media depict. But I would still think, well, most farmers are probably poor. It's just my experience that's wrong. Because isn't that what we always do, is we always think, oh, well, everybody else is right, but I'm wrong. Or everybody else is actually probably the majority or the correct reality, but me, oh, that was just a fluke, right? And I think it's actually intentional to portray farmers as poor and dumb and undesirable, because the ultimate truth is that farmers are independent and self-sufficient from the grid. And if that were depicted with any ounce of reality, more people would want to be that, and then thus more people would be off the grid, free and self-sufficient and independent. And I think it's encouraged to seek that dependence in the grid, to go into your little apartment box, work as a slave, and get into that routine. That is glamorized, even though we all know it's empty and full of a void, and there starts to be no sense of purpose, right? And it's such a dependent lifestyle. And I'm not saying that, I'm the first to not glamorize farming, but I am the first to detect, because of my lived experience, that it's definitely depicted with a strange level of caricature and of demeaning, very looked down on, very demeaning, very condescended kind of portrayal. And I think that's intentional. I think it's because, it's not just if it were portrayed with an ounce of reality. If it were even glamorized, oh, watch out. Then we had a glamorized, like, Sex in the Country type of show. We would be in such a different, we'd have so many more people that were independent. We'd have so many more people self-sufficient. And so just think about that. Think about the fact that so many things that you take for granted as just that's what reality is not true. Just like the poor farmer stereotype. Even me as a non-poor farmer will see that and think that is what, oh yeah, of course, yeah, farmers are poor. Even though I was surrounded by really wealthy farmers, or at least upper middle class. And so it's such a con. It's such a con to be manipulated so thoroughly that you just take for granted certain stereotypes as truth. And another thing that I always see with the kind of with farming is they always want to kind of emphasize that it's a dull, boring life, so you don't want to pursue it. And then they always emphasize that it's dumb, evil people that are it. And then it's also associated as poor. So it's like, it's undesirable on all levels of wanting a social reward. Like, it doesn't seem like everyone's doing it. It's not like a fun, wonderful community, when actually it's a very close-knit community, and it could be, you know, it's so that's portrayed. And then it's portrayed as no money. That's undesirable. Then it's portrayed as you will be kind of a dehumanized, demonized, kind of dull person for being in it. And I have to say, it's effective. I mean, I certainly grew up on a farm, and did I want to have any part of it? No, because I was propagandized to view this, the ascent and the ambition of going to a city to pursue a career is the top hierarchy, is the ultimate dream. And now when I look back and all the way, you know, when you kind of go through an awakening and you're seeing all the ways you're conditioned, you think, wow, I have fallen into a lot of perception traps, and they were well set. I mean, the best ones are just ones you just kind of take for granted as truth. Of course but of course that's reality. And so I just want you to rethink that. There's so many, and that's exactly why, you know, when we talk about racism and sexism, it's true that we worry about those things because they're stereotypical assumptions, and they reduce people to caricature. And it's the same thing with a regional sense of equating somebody to be something less than based on what they do for a living, or where they're from, or where they're living. And it's very problematic indeed. So anyway, just think about that. Think about things in your life that you just kind of take for granted as the conditioning, as the caricature that's correct. But reality, they always trust your reality over what is being spoon-fed or sold to you. Anyway, I hope this was interesting.